Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Alien Rage, or in this case, Alien Rage Unlimited. I'm not really sure what the difference is. It's very strange. The earlier marketing material mentioned Alien Rage, but now it's called Alien Rage Unlimited. I don't know if there's supposed to be a difference there or anything along those lines. Whatever the case, by City Interactive or CI Games. If you happen to click the link on Steam, you will find that they have nothing to their name. That is, of course, not the case. They are City Interactive, who are a publisher and a developer, probably best known on PC for the title Sniper Ghost Warrior, as well as Ghost Warrior 2. Neither of those games were particularly good, I have to say. And along comes Alien Rage, which appears, at least from the outside, to be a fairly generic sci-fi FPS. And that is exactly what it is. We'll have a quick look at the options menu, shall we, before we go into this. It does promise excellent graphics technology. It doesn't really give you a lot of choices as to how you want to use it, though, unfortunately. Now, the game's performance is a little lackluster, so I had to turn AA off, which you should never really have to do on a system like this, especially with the Unreal 3 engine, but I had to anyway. This got me pretty constant 60, but every now and again there are some frame drops for no apparent reason. The game's optimization doesn't appear to really be all there. Aside from that, screen res, post-process, texture and shadow quality there, full screen or window if you so desire. There is no field of view slider, and the default FOV does appear to be a little narrow. It caused me discomfort while playing, so there's a bit of a warning for you. Fully rebindable keys are thankfully available, which is always nice. Nothing out of the ordinary, as you can see in the key bindings, anything that would really surprise you there. Full audio sliders, once again a nice feature to have. And then you can turn aim assist on or off. It defaults to on, by the way, so if you do want to play this, then turn it off immediately. And that's pretty much about it when it comes to the options, honestly. So, we can't really play the multiplayer right now, because the game's not out as of the time of recording this video, which means the multiplayer is completely dead. I might check that out at a later date. Now, what you do have are player perks, so you can get 3 of these equipped at any given time, and you unlock them as you gain score in the campaign. And you unlock, I think, each tier at once. As you can see, I'm 14.2% of the way to getting the tier 2 perks. In this case, I've taken extended magazines, 50% more ammo. You've also got stun resistance there, and extended ammunition if you so desire. So a little bit of character customization in the single player, not a huge amount. Let's get into the campaign. As you can see, I'm on mission 3 of 14. And we will rock and roll. I believe I'm on the hard difficulty right now. I'm going to have to double check. Let's just quickly check what difficulty I'm currently on. Alright, I'm actually on challenging. Now, you might think, well, why have you put it on easy? Well, let me put it this way. The game is not particularly easy. And there's a couple of design decisions that have made it that way. One being the fact that we use regenerating health here. And no, there isn't a health meter, so don't even think about that. No health meter whatsoever. It is all bloody screen so real. And the regeneration time in the health is actually quite high. Surprisingly so. There are some sequences in this game that can kill you very, very easily. Whether it be rockets that you generally don't see coming from across the screen, or whether it be boss fights that will also destroy you pretty quickly. Also, there are these blue spawners on the ground which can cause invisible grunts with shotguns to appear behind you, which results in you dying very, very quickly, as you might imagine. That's a nice little secondary fire there on the shotgun. Oh, I love it. So I did turn it down. The boss fight was an absolute pain in the ass, very, very bullet spongy indeed. I decided, you know what, I want to get a little bit further in this game before I actually do my first impression, so I put it down to challenging, which is certainly challenging. I cannot imagine putting this up to hard. That really sounds like a bad idea in general. I think the main problem is there's a lot of very high damage shots that go off in this game, particularly any enemy with a shotgun, rocket launcher, or minigun, and that results in you having to take cover. Now, cover is destructible, and the game also has stuns, as you just noticed there. So, it can result in some pretty hectic times. Let's just get these guys out of the way. So you have to take cover for a rather long length of time, and the thing is, the enemies won't just hang around either. The enemy AI is actually not that bad at all, and it will pursue you into cover if it knows you are weak. And that will probably result in you dying horribly. So, I had to turn it down, and that's kind of humiliating. So if you're looking for a challenge, you will get it here. Now, the question, I suppose, is whether or not that challenge is worthwhile. I don't necessarily think so. I think they were going for an arcadey shooter here, but they decided, you know what? We're not going to bother having health packs or anything like that. And it really does kind of ruin the pacing of the game somewhat. You have to take cover a lot, and you can move at a reasonable pace, but since most of the enemy weapons are hit scan, you moving at a reasonable pace isn't actually going to make that much of a difference whatsoever. Which is a little unfortunate, to say the least. Alright, clearly nothing in here, aside from a bonus. Now, the game is kind of linear, to say the least. In fact, it's very, very linear. It points you exactly in the right direction. Your jump is... I mean, there's no point in even jumping. There is no point in this game the way I've ever had to jump. I don't even know why it's in there. You can jump about 3 inches in the air, so don't even think about strafe jumping or anything like that. That's stuff that isn't available. The game very much puts you down a linear path with very little room for deviation. The only reason you would go and do that is because there are hidden bonuses throughout the level, these little cubes which give you score, which will allow you to unlock perks a little bit quicker, and every now and again you'll also find an audio log if for some reason you actually care about the storyline of this game. Can't really imagine why you would, because it is very, very generic indeed, and honestly, it knows it's cliched. It doesn't pretend to be anything else. Very, very cliched game. Shoot the aliens, they're after our stuff kind of thing. There's probably going to be a twist somewhere down the line, and then that'll be that. So I wouldn't worry too much about the storyline. If you were looking for a storyline, you probably didn't want to grab a game called Alien Rage. I'm not really sure what you expected. It's very standard, generic, burly Space Marine versus Alien kind of action. Gotta say, though, even though it is extremely linear, so linear, in fact, that you can't even go this way, even though it looks obvious that you could, its actual gunplay is pretty solid. It's actually a fairly enjoyable, if generic, FPS. The guns are reasonably varied, and almost all of them have secondary fire options, which is always nice. You can only carry 3 at once. That's 2 and your pistol. Your pistol is pretty effective, and its secondary fire is a 3-round burst. It's actually one of the more satisfying weapons to shoot with. The default assault rifle's not bad either. The fire rate of the guns in this game is actually quite high, which is pretty good, because it deals with the whole bullet spongy aspect by saying, oh, you know, you can just empty so many bullets into enemies so incredibly quickly. And with the ammo perk, you can actually get 90 rounds in an assault rifle magazine. Right now I'm using alien weapons, as you can see, and they very much perform as you would expect there. But they do have some grenades and things like that, and you saw earlier the shotgun gravity secondary effect, which is pretty damn fantastic. Uh-oh. This is getting a little bit ugly. So yeah, the gunplay's not bad, actually. It's not too bad at all. So a lot of aim down sights nonsense, unless of course you're using the shotgun, but it's, you know, it's good enough. It does what it's supposed to do. Which is, if I was going to describe this game in... Uh-oh, this is not going well. What the hell is he? There we go. If I were to describe this game in a couple of words, I would say, does what it's supposed to do is exactly what I would call it. You know, that's what this game is. It's by the numbers in many, many ways. And even though it has all of these score bonuses, which are kind of Bulletstorm-esque, frankly, they don't quite go far enough, and there aren't really enough methods to kill the enemy in a creative manner, yeah? Getting rewarded for headshots, fine. Okay, reward me for headshots, that's cool. Rewarded for blowing people up, but a lot of them are kind of silly and contrived. Both barrels, I assume, is just killing someone in one shot with a shotgun. You don't have the gravity whip in the same way that you do in something like Bulletstorm. You don't have the ability to kick enemies into cacti and do all sorts of crazy combos, so the sort of skill shot kill system falls a little bit short because there aren't enough ways to do those skillful kills. It's still quite satisfying to get the little pop-ups and the little Quake 3 style announcements over it, don't get me wrong. It's just it's a little bit strange. If they were going to go the arcadey approach, one, I would have completely changed the way the health system works, but I can't even safely engage here until bloody screen so real disappears. And I would have also put a lot more ways to actually acquire those skillful kills in the game. If you don't have that, then what's the point in that system really being there? I like the fact that they've tied the score system into the ability... into the ability to actually unlock perks. That's cool. That's a decent way of doing things, I feel. but really the perks are not massively interesting, at least not initially. They may be better later on, honestly. They may end up being better later on. So I shouldn't really judge them too much. So aside from the fact that I can't really play this game for more than 20 minutes in a session without feeling just a little bit nauseous, and that's probably due to the narrow FOV and a lot of shaky cam stuff. Weapon models are a bit big as well, honestly, and there's no need for weapon models to be this large in a PC game, frankly. Aside from all of that, it does what it's supposed to do pretty well. From what I've heard, it's a pretty short campaign. It looks like it as well. I cracked through the first few missions without too much of a problem. There are only 14. You can replay them for score if you so desire, but I can't imagine that being a big thing. So the game is probably going to end up surviving on its multiplayer. But we should, of course, take into account the price point. If this was a $60 title with a campaign like this, I'd probably be calling that pretty weak. But for $20, and it's actually even less than that if you pre-order it, but again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that. For $20, it's not that bad if you're looking for a brainless FPS, and rest assured, it is most assuredly brainless. It's not a bad looker, though. The actual aesthetic design's not bad. The main problem I think I've got with it is that all the levels seem to look the same. This is, I think, the 3rd or the 4th level, and they seem to use exactly the same tile set. The game supposedly boasts 21 enemy types, but I have a feeling they all look identical. It's like, oh, invisible alien that looks the same, alien with different gun, alien with grenade launcher. They don't really vary it up all that much. Aside from the boss, it's always been these aliens with different guns, and that was pretty much it. So I don't view that as a huge amount of enemy variety there. But the enemies do look pretty good, as do the gun designs, honestly. The models are not too shabby. Decent amount of interesting looking models as well. Obviously an assault rifle's gonna look pretty generic regardless, but it's not a bad little through the gun sight experience, I suppose. Oh god. I did say you could die very, very fast, particularly to grenade launchers. Good luck avoiding those at anything other than extreme ranges, by the way. I do think the game's a little bit cheap at times, honestly. Obviously, on the easier difficulty level, dying is not that common, although I'm managing to do it regardless. On the higher difficulty, I was just dying over and over and over again, and it didn't seem like it was possible to avoid a lot of it. Cover is destructible to some degree, at least some of it is, especially in the boss fights, so you can't really rely on that too much. But it does seem like you can die really, really fast. Maybe that fixes itself later down the line once you get a few more perks, but early on in the game, you die really quickly. Some people are going to find that a challenge, and yeah, I can get that, certainly, but you might not find it as challenging when you round a corner only to eat a grenade in the face and die immediately. It's not that you can lean around the corners or there's really any early warning of that kind of stuff coming at you, and more to the point, almost all of the attacks that hit scout are incredibly quick, so the biggest annoyance is what it does to the pacing of the title. It's like, oh, it's an arcadey shooter. I hate anything that spawns behind me. Come on. That's just cheap. Anyway, it's an arcadey shooter, but you are encouraged to go slower than you would like simply because of having to deal with this kind of damage, yeah? If your screen's going red, you're gonna have to wait for your health to regenerate. It would have been nice just to have a health bar. Don't argue that you're an arcadey FPS if you're not going to throw a health bar in there, at least. You don't have to worry about realism or anything like that. At least I would then know when it was safe to come out of cover, but again, I'm not so keen on the health regeneration and things like that to the point where I would play it on a lower difficulty just so I get a bit more pace out of the game, just so I can be a little bit quicker. So you get this screen at the end of everything, as you might imagine, and then you go on to the next level, and that's pretty much Alien Rage in a nutshell. Admittedly, this level looks exactly the same as the last one. Again, art assets are fairly high quality, as far as I'm concerned. Texture quality is not incredible, but it's not a bad-looking game. It's got some nice, neat lighting effects in the Unreal 3 engine. Can't really complain too much about that. Ooh. Interesting. That's another... So, hang on, it gave me another shotgun? So there's an alien shotgun and a human shotgun. They actually kind of almost do the same thing there. I'm not so keen on that. It does brag about having 10 weapons, but if they're just alien and human versions of the same kinds of weapons, then that's not so amazing. Anyway, at the end of the day, it's a $20 shooter. It's very linear. It's pretty competent at what it does, yeah? I do not think this is a horrible game, by any stretch of the imagination. And I am having fun with it. This shotty in particular just takes enemies apart. The actual gunplay is satisfying, if a little bit par the course. It is an average game. An average game for a low price. Not bad. It's not a bad game. Not an amazing game. It's definitely more promising than what I saw from City Interactive with things like Sniper, Ghost Warrior, which didn't turn out to be too good at all. I think they could make a really solid game like this in the future. Maybe they could make a sequel to this title. Obviously, it's not a strong IP in any respect, but it's not bad. But I think that next time they just need to make it arcadey. Go old school with it. Have levels you can explore a little bit. Give me keycards. Make me explore. Make me find secrets. Feel free to give me a larger inventory. Feel free to let me carry more than 3 guns at once. That, to me, seems... Oh, God. That, to me, seems reasonable. Give me a proper health system. Make less of the enemy projectiles hit scan. Make a few more of them dodgeable. Give me a little bit more speed. Give me a little bit more strafe jumping. It feels like they're kind of halfway there with it, but they chickened out and decided to go down the more modern route, and I don't feel the modern route for FPS is a particularly good idea when you're trying to argue, yeah, guys, this is an arcadey space FPS. We're going old school. It's like, well, you're not really, are you? Putting a score system in the game doesn't make you old school. If you want a game like this that's better, I'd say Bulletstorm is better in almost every respect, aside from the annoying fact that it's on Games for Windows Live, which is definitely not going to help you at all. But for what it is, I'm gonna be honest, Alien Rage is a decent fun time. Especially for those of you who are not affected by simulation sickness like I am. It's a decent shooter. It's competent at what it does. There are no elements of this game that I would call outright horrible. Most of them are par the course with the occasional flash of brilliance, and frankly, yeah, you can run into some really nice moments where you're just blowing aliens apart at the seams with a shotgun, detonating them with secondary fire, throwing them into the air with that alien blast and things like that, and you will have fun. It's a fun time. But it is most assuredly not spectacular. Not in any way, shape, or form. I'm interested to see if the multiplayer ends up being any good. I'm gonna think it probably isn't, but there is no way for me to test that right now. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, Alien Rage. $20 or your regional equivalent available today from City Interactive on Steam. My name's been TotalBiscuit, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.